All right, let's do a couple of things really quickly here. We want to make sure, hopefully, we can get all of the streams up and on board. But while we're doing that, ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please do us a huge, huge favor. Please like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you find anything that we are going to discuss tonight helpful, useful, or entertaining at all by any means, please give us a like, give us a subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us out tremendously. And we are always grateful for any help that you may be able to contribute. And with that being said, we are going live tonight. We are actually live. So if you got any comments or questions that you would like to drop in, throw them down in the chat. We can actually see them and we'll try to respond to them as quickly and in live time as we possibly can. And with that being said, I think I got all the housekeeping things out of the way. Let me go ahead and welcome in my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rico. Welcome back to United States. I know you were in Mexico for a few days. Welcome home.
Yeah, we made it back in. Got a little bit of a tan, a little bit of a sunburn, but we're glad to be back home and back in the saddle again, so to speak.
I hear you. Welcome home.
Um, Kind of excited for tonight's show. It's been a little while since we've got a chance to get Mike back on with us, and I'm really glad that he was able to make it work as far as taking time out of his schedule to come back on and join us and maybe shed some light and wisdom upon all that's going down. As we've got a lot of stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
The big beautiful bill that's passed and has become law now. So I'm curious as to all of the different things that Mike has to say about that. And without any further ado, I'm going to affectionately call Mike our resident economist. That's what
You
I
certainly
have dubbed him as. And so, Mike, welcome back to the Racing Lanes podcast. How have you been, sir?
I'm doing great, and my wife has a different name for me.
are. Can you say it on the air or would you rather not, Michael?
My wife says, yeah, yeah. She says, no, I can't do it here.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Racing Lane podcast. Michael, on behalf of Rico and me and many of our listeners who have reached out to me recently, and thanks you especially
All right.
for some of your wisdom previously on some of our broadcasts, because the ones that took your advice are doing okay. I'm not going to say they're making millions, but they're at least doing better than treading water. And
Good. I'm glad to
unfortunately,
hear
the
that.
ones that didn't want to listen to you, they're sinking. So, Michael, on behalf of all of us, thank you for your wisdom.
Nobody's ever said that to me.
But thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. No, listen, I'm glad. I'm really, I mean, we are voices in the wind, and we're glad to hear that somebody catches the wind from, your experience and your experience, which God knows is extensive. And I mean, I think, look, that's the beauty of this technology, which is, it doesn't cost anybody to listen. And sometimes you hear something that's worthwhile, and I'm glad if it can help anybody out because, it's going to be a very different world going forward.
Yeah, it is right now. So, Michael, there's so much going on. We have, we have tariffs. We've got three wars really raging. One of them has died down a bit, I guess, but trying to make sense. Three that we know about, and there's a whole bunch of other ones going on. Of course, they're kind of like forest fires, unfortunately. What the hell's going on, Michael?
Well, just remember, it's an old Chinese curse. May you have an interesting life.
Oh, we're having that.
I think it's, but I've been watching a lot of it. I mean, I'm very deep into AI as well. I use it a lot, and I think there's going to be a big change in the trucking industry with AI. AI is going to really, in fact, the irony of the story is the one person that's going to be safe in AI is the truck driver, at least for now, right? I mean, the technology of self-driving trucks are like decades away.
Well, I have to, you know what? Let me interject for a second. There, and I will eat my words here because on this podcast many years ago, and a few years ago, and as recent as 3 months ago, I said we will never see the day when a truck is driving down the highway with nobody in it. And there were some trucks driving with nobody in them in Texas. I believe the carrier was Hirschbach, and the trucks were unmanned, going from point to point in Texas. And Packard, who is it was either Peterbilt or Kenworth, got hold of the carrier and said, "You get drivers in those trucks immediately because we don't want any part of a lawsuit if something happens." And they had to man those trucks. Not that those drivers on those trucks were doing anything; the trucks were doing it all, but there had to be a body on. So you know
Well,
what?
sure.
I was wrong, guys, about that part, and I will
No, no,
admit.
I think I mean, it's look. There's a lot that technology is going to do for drivers, and Rico, I think you're going to be very happy with it. And there's a lot it's going to do on the maintenance, on the fuel systems, on the fuel costs. Driver assist, safety. There's going to be a lot of improvements using AI that'll really impact the driver's life. On the other side, behind the wheel, behind the truck, back at the terminal, all that is going to change.
So, do you see like where uh, big trucking companies will have 3 shifts of dispatchers, them being down to like a just a supervisor, and AI is handling all the day-to-day stuff? Is that
No,
what you're
not
saying?
that low. No, not that low. I don't think it'll ever be that low. But I think the question is, you look and by the way, it's every industry, right? Every
Oh
industry
yeah.
right now is being affected from the point of view of the person who can lend value to the person who's just doing a task. If you're picking up a stapler, your job is gone,
Right.
right? If you're a person analyzing the data, and you're able to read patterns because you have historical knowledge, you're going to be okay. But a lot of the back end work of computers talking to each other is going to increase rapidly over the next few years, right? So
Interesting.
you're if you think about this from a flow through process, Rico, a company is piped into 4, 5, or 6 different boards. They put out a load. The boards pick up the load. The boards monitor where the trucks are. The boards post the deal. The boards take the order. The boards send out the order. Then you have AI generated voice. So basically, as an example, what's that company? It's worth about $65 billion. They have one of the best AI agents. So the future is AI agents, right? And these AI
Right.
agents can be video, they can be audio. I mean, you're going to think you're talking to somebody. There's nobody there.
Right. Yeah. I've actually experienced that with there are a few brokers and things of that nature that have AI answering the phones now. They're actually answering the phones, and if you're not careful, you can pick up on it, but it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
For a second there, they'll have you thinking you're talking to a real person.
Yeah, yeah, and that it's going to be really amazing. The design in engines is going to be mind blowing. What they're
So
doing now,
here,
I follow the engine market very closely in the car industry, and the stuff they're doing with engines is just mind blowing.
here's the $6,400 question. How much so do you think that AI will have an effect on the actual transportation industry when it comes to third party, when it comes to brokers and third party, um, because for so many years they've always thought that this was going to be the end of the broker. This was the technology was going to be the end of the broker, so on and so forth. But that has kind of been proven otherwise. Do they actually think that now that this will be the catalyst to maybe uh, reduce or have an effect on brokers in their business as well, or
Well, we talk about the drivers or the brokers.
The brokers.
The
on the
brokers,
broker side?
if the brokers are not already working to automate what can be automated, they're not going to survive.
Right. Because their competition is.
Well, because the brokers were nothing more than people who relayed information.
Right.
That was their job.
Yep.
So when you look now at most of the restructuring in the economic landscape, the people who are in the most dangerous position are white collar jobs.
Mm,
People whose job was to relay information,
right.
right? Well, these machines now are going to talk to each other, and they're only going to get faster and better, right? So I use AI in my work, and so help me God, ChatGPT knows me by name. It actually knows me by name. It says, Michael, listen, if you do this, like, okay, seriously. Right.
Right.
Now, what happens is, and this is where it gets interesting, and I want to share this with you. After a few months of doing this, it began to learn my entire business. So when I wanted to draft documents or do anything, it already knew all my brands. It would just drop it in.
Wow.
Now,
So it
how do you
learns.
safeguard? So, how do you safeguard that information from a competitor being able to get that out of that system? Can they?
Well, I mean, what information does a trucking company have that's confidential?
The rates, who the customer is, things like
Well,
that.
but yeah, but trucking companies are a very unique situation. Whatever their cost is, but they have no control over the rates.
No, the market
So
controls the rates.
exactly. So
But
you
what
really
rate
don't.
they have with let's say a company has it rates with Walmart. I'm just going to use that as an example
Uh-huh.
because Walmart's a giant shipper and they've got a contract with Walmart for so many dozen or so many hundred trucks a day, whatever it is. Does that information still stay confidential between the two parties, or once AI gets involved, does that become public knowledge?
It's not confidential now. It wasn't confidential last year. If somebody read it somewhere, it's not confidential,
Okay.
right? I mean, if they used an email, it's no longer confidential.
Yeah, I guess if you're hacking into emails,
No, no, nobody's hacking. The system is recording all of it.
but
It's recording all of it. There is no secrecy anymore. The world better forget about that part. But I tell you where it's going, and this is where it's going to get really interesting for the trucking industry. So one of the things that happens, everybody talks the word AI, but AI is just today. There's two more layers, and this is where I could see it going. The next layer is called AGI, and that's only about 3 or 4 years away. It's called artificial generative intelligence. And what
right.
that means is it's starting to learn your business in traffic for you, Rico, and it starts to generate data and information going forward. It's no longer going back; it's going forward.
So
Then
it learns your
it learns
let's
your customers and you. It learns your customers and you.
so let's just say Rico, for example, runs his truck between Atlanta and North Carolina. It will start looking for loads automatically in North Carolina, knowing that Rico goes to North Carolina, let's say 3 times a week.
It'll even know which clients that he picked up in North Carolina and email them in advance.
Wow.
He can automate, just send, I'm going to be in North Carolina on Friday. Look through my client list and send out notices I'm going to be there on Friday.
But now, how does that, once again, like with the AI load boards and all of this stuff, and with everything, because there's still, what's the word that I want to look for? There's still a lot of, there's still very adversarial positions between motor carriers, small trucking companies, and so on and so forth, and brokers. The carrier broker relationship is still very adversarial.
But
Um,
the brokers will be disappearing because they're no longer needed in this equation. They're not needed. If they don't have sufficient size of scale,
Right.
they're
The
not
small
needed,
brokers are going to,
right? Because if you look at, let's say, Walmart, I'll use Walmart. Walmart is not waiting for you guys to create an efficiency. Walmart's already driving the efficiency.
of course.
They're already internalizing, automating. In fact, I'll give you a very good idea. You ever hear of a company called Salesforce?
Sure.
yep.
Okay, well, 50% of Salesforce is already automated. So let me get this straight. You automated a system that was designed to sell to salespeople to use to sell.
So now here's the, I don't know if this is the fly in the ointment. So with all of this taking place, what is this going to do for unemployment? Because
That's a good
this is
question.
going to be replacing a lot of jobs. If so many people are going to be wiped out or replaced by AI, then how
Well,
are people to sustain themselves?
well, that's a very good question because what you've had is, and you look at the last 20, we talked about the big beautiful bill, but forget that part. I've been sitting back and I've been looking at this, and okay, so I said, I don't think he had a master plan, but really, when you think about it, what he's trying to do, he's trying to reshore manufacturing. So when you look at the context of this entire scale of the C-suite, the middle layer of a company, then the operations of the company, the guys manufacturing, people, women, men and women manufacturing. The men and women manufacturing is the most expensive part to automate. The middle part's going to be really cheap to automate. So
Mm.
they're gonna need more people on the floor building stuff than they will up above them.
because that'll all be done by technology.
Exactly. So it'll efficientize more things, but in a weirdest way, I don't think he planned on it, but by reshoring of this stuff as much as possible, that'll help the U.S.
But then, how realistically, how much manufacturing can you actually bring back to the U.S.?
Quite a lot, quite a lot.
Can they even with the tariffs? So can the U.S. compete with emerging countries, like Vietnam, Cambodia,
Well, that's
countries?
what the tariffs were there for. I mean, in essence, when he was president in 2016, he placed tariffs on China. So what did China do? Is they moved to Vietnam. So they started shipping from Vietnam. This time he says, no, 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 no. We're just plugging it all up, right? Look, I'm not afraid. I'm not a friend of tariffs, but if you think about this, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not that wages are going to go sky high, but I think in a certain sense, it's sort of like saying, we had a great time for 30 years of outsourcing everything and driving things really cheap, and then substituting credit for higher wages. So people had more credit without the wages,
Right, and they made,
right?
yeah, very good point. Yeah,
So nobody went to ask their boss for a job, an increase, because they could go to the bank and get more loans.
and they could buy stuff cheaper
Exactly.
instead of a wool shirt being $25, it became $5 because it was
Or it
made in.
became $25 pay on installments, or a
Yeah,
vacation pay on installments, right? But
yeah,
I'm very fascinated with the fuel costs are going to go down, because this is the interesting part. Take a look at your fuel. Take a look at your diesel fuel index. Normally at this time of the year it should be high because the summer blends. Yet the cost of oil hasn't moved. We got a war in the Middle East, and the cost of oil hasn't moved.
Well, right when that jumped off, it did jump about 20 cents.
Wow,
As
that's a
far
lot.
as far as diesel fuel, it jumped
Right, but
about
I mean,
20 cents per gallon.
yeah, but take a look. If you look at your chart right now, I mean, a barrel of oil right now, 66, $67 a barrel. Normally at this time of the year, they're about 82, 85.
Yeah, historically, you're probably about right.
Yeah.
We pushing closer to that upper 100.
well, Mike, is some of that, excuse me, but is some of that due to less demand because there's less, a lot of people don't, they park their trucks. Is that part of
Well,
it?
well, it's not just the trucks. It's a whole variety of societal change, right? Number one, today's generation, they don't get driver's licenses.
Yeah, I
So the
noticed.
amount of driver's licenses are way down. The second part is the engines now are becoming so fuel efficient. I've
Yes.
been a big fan of plug-in hybrids for years. And I said, EVs aren't going to win. Plug-in hybrids are going to win. But if you think of a plug-in hybrid right now, I was just reading about what this new engine from Toyota, it's like 400 horsepower, like 35 miles to the gallon,
Wow.
right? So you're
Yeah,
talking
so
about if you double the range, you cut the fuel in half.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia even just increased their fuel production because the cost is so low. They need more money. They increased production.
and that's the thing, because speaking, since the economist on board and we're just talking about the car industry, a lot of manufacturers are they're taking a bath on these EVs. And
Good.
a lot of them have started coming back. I think Dodge just announced back that they're bringing back their V8s. I know Mercedes said that they're bringing back the V8. Um,
But they don't
so you
need
got
to. They don't need to, because I mean, you look at now. I'm looking at these designs. I mean, you got four-cylinder engines that do 400 horsepower.
Yeah, but they're losing their shirt on and the amount of money when they was pushing when the big push was out for
Oh
EVs,
yeah,
no
yeah.
one realized exactly uh, how bad of a investment they were at the time, because I mean people
They're not going to work.
they are
It's
losing
not going to
money
work.
hand over fist, and the consumer is taking. I mean, like the Porsche Taycan, I think that was like a damn near $200,000 car when it first came out. And I
Yeah.
think now on the used market, I think you can probably pick it up for a third of what it costs new.
I mean,
And
that's
those
another.
cars aren't super old.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is this. It's sort of like the funny part is the EVs are putting the EVs out of business, right? So if you think about this, I get an EV today, and next year they got one that doubles the range. crap, I just paid 50 grand for a car that does this, and a year later it
Right.
does double the range.
It's useless to me because I can't drive to my
And I
cottage.
can't even sell it because who's going to buy my car when they get something to double the range?
Well, and you still don't have a lot of people are still not really crazy about buying EVs. They're not
No,
selling they're not selling nowhere near as much as most manufacturers thought that they were.
And do you guys think that's because it's an emerging technology and people have gotten wise to it that if I wait another year, it'll have a much bigger range and maybe cost less?
no,
I think for the American driver, just my opinion, I think for the American driver, um, man, we just the car has for most part the car has no soul, and so a lot of people that are into the big V8, the V8 engines or something like that, just it doesn't do anything for them. It's kind of a soulless car, even though a Tesla Plaid is probably one of the fastest manufactured cars out there, but it just has no soul to it. You don't have a connection with it.
yeah, I mean, culturally, you're right, but I think ultimately what it is that the cars themselves and this, there's no long-term data on reliability. There's no market for second markets. Like, why would I take a $60,000 gamble on a car that I don't really know where I can fill it up? I don't know, how I'm going to recharge. I don't know how long I'm going to be staying. There's just too many unknown variables that they didn't plan for.
Especially where you and I
You know,
live.
yeah, I
You know,
mean,
it's a little different to those that live,
yeah,
like Rico lives in Atlanta, so it doesn't get that cold. But if you live in a northern climate, it plays havoc with those batteries.
well, but the way I look at it is this, it's as if the governments all got together and said, we want to introduce this new form of transportation. It's called an airplane. You get on the airplane and you fly across the world. Then you get the other side of the world. Okay, how do we land? Oh, we didn't think about
Good point.
that. So if you just stay up there a little longer, we'll get that runway done and we'll let you know when you can land. That's the way they approach the EVs. They put the EVs out and this says, where are they going to charge? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you had to be and I had a friend that was an early adapter, and he had two of them over 10 years ago. And he would, he had the time because he had retired already. So he
Yeah,
would
yeah.
drive, like, he would drive hundreds of miles to be able to take his EV. He'd do hundreds of extra miles to be able to drive from Alberta to Florida. But he'd have to go all the way to Seattle in order to be able to charge it. It
Yeah.
was
See?
insane.
See? It
Uh,
was like, where's the airport? Oh, we're building it. Stay up there.
yeah, good analogy, Mike. So let me ask you something. I'm very interested. You know a lot about the car industry. We've talked about it. Now, the last, I don't know, I'm going to guess the last 60 years or so, the automotive industry has been the undercarriage of the North American economy. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think the car industry worldwide.
But especially North America, when the car industry went, uh, when things were bad in the car industry, things were bad everywhere.
It used to be that way, but it's the auto industry is no longer one of the main drivers of the employment anymore, right? I think it used to be, but when you consider how many people are left on the line and so forth and so on, and you and I talked about this. In 1990, there were 325,000 jobs directly in the auto sector in Ontario. They're down to 100,000, going to be dropping to probably 50,000 in the next few years. So it doesn't drive it anymore. I think manufacturing is really going to be it, but it's going to be a very different world. It's going to be a really different world. And by the way, I said to you, there's three layers there. So there's AI, there's AGI, and then there's going to be ASI.
Okay.
Okay, and that's about 10 years away. And when that happens, God help us all. So because that's artificial superintelligence, and
Well,
artificial
and that's
superintelligence is about 1,000 times smarter than the smartest person on earth.
That's the one of the I think that's something that somebody was talking about. I think one of the news agencies was like we're literally are heading for man versus machine because some of the AIs have gotten so smart to the point to where they understand if they're being getting ready to be programmed to be shut down or whatever. They create
I,
viruses and go try to reproduce themselves in another format.
I got a different story for you. It's sort of along what you just said, Rico. Uh, One of the AI systems, I'm not going to mention it, right? There's actually three main ones out there in the marketplace. And I'm not going to mention it. But this company decided to test it. So what they did was they fed it a fake person for several months. And this fake person had affairs and took drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. And then
Right.
one day they said, we're going to shut it down. And it tried to blackmail them.
Right. Right. Yeah. I heard. Yeah. I've heard similar stories like that. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, do we really know what kind of a
Uh,
Pandora's box that we have opened here?
but on the other side, and I get the dangers, and there's going to be dangers, and it's going to be dangerous as hell out there. But I'm fascinated to see what this thing is going to do. I mean, especially as I said, you know, you guys are truck guys. I'm a car guy, and I love watching what they're doing in the cars. And I mean, in my lifetime, I did not think I was going to see cars with more than 2,000 horsepower.
Hmm.
And we're going to drive it.
Well, I mean, you can't drive some of them marks, but most of them are not. But I mean, but they're plug-in hybrids, right? So you're talking about like, I mean, these cars are, and this technology is going to wind its way down. It already has. I mean, Mercedes' new E63 is a
Right.
six-cylinder, 751 horsepower car,
Right.
right? But all this technology is going to wind itself down to the point where you look at a truck engine, right? They're going to take this technology and say, you know, yes, it runs on diesel, but can we make it 50% more fuel efficient?
Of course, because that's where the profit is.
Right. And then safety. Safety is going to be a big, AI is going to be a big contributor to trucking industry and safety.
So, how is this going to affect? How do you think this is going to affect the small operator? All this new technology.
This is fantastic. So I'll tell you what, guys, if anybody's listening, I'll tell you what I've done and what you should do. The one of the things I love doing with AI is you can feed it all the data on your business. You could, and you don't need to create spreadsheets. You could literally feed it the banking statements, your receivables, the raw data, just raw data. It will map the whole thing out. You'll create models of everything in minutes.
So this is really going. I can see where this would
And it's free.
alleviate.
And it's free.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Even a fair sized company will be able to get rid of most of their accounting staff. They'll need a CFO and an assistant, from the sounds of it,
And the AR can be completely automated.
as can the AP,
Yep.
and they'll get it right. They'll send the as long. Now, how good are they at getting the right information?
Well, the information comes from you, and it'll take a few months, several months. It learns your business, and it'll learn your business, right? And but you can do now, and I think Rico is an example. You could feed in your credit card bills, your fuel bills, your clients' names. You could feed all that data into it. It will record it, and you know, over time, as you start conversing with it, it'll start telling you, you know, that client in North Carolina, we did 12 loads from last year. You did an average of $1.32 per mile. Da 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 da. You're like, oh, okay, great. So when you talk to the guy, you'll be saying, yeah, I'll do it at $1.32.
Right.
So with this for the small operator and for one of the things that like I said, the adversarial relationship between brokers and small motor carriers or motor carriers in general, it's always been when you're not dealing with reputable, or I wouldn't even say reputable brokers. I want to say good brokers that don't. I'm seeing like on social media, we see a lot of things. There's a guy that's records his calls and he puts them out on social media. And I've made a comment on one of his posts where he was calling in and he was having carriers give him bids on the lane, and how he was doing it for content, but it was amazing to see how quickly and how fast how far to a race to the bottom that people were willing to go. He would
Oh
tell
yeah.
them a price that he did never even gotten, and how quickly somebody would go ahead and drop their price by
Sure.
$200-300. And I'm like,
Yeah.
at
So
the end of the day, you got to understand what I understand that the value proposition, but as far as being able to get a good deal, but at the end of the day, there's so many different things that go into uh, having a trucking company, a trucking business. It's more than just a cheap rate, and then you're not compensated for all of the wait times and things of that nature, especially if you're dealing on the spot market. 9 times out of ten, you're giving away all of that for free.
They are, but you see, this is where you win. So you got to remember the broker's role up to now was to source you and to source the client.
Right.
You
He's
don't need them anymore. You'll be able to start talking directly to your clients because if you feed in, look, if you right now take all of the clients you've done for 2 years, if you've got them somewhere in data, Excel spreadsheet, whatever, and you feed that into the AI, you tell create for me a list of all of them, and then set up an email campaign with contact information to you. And you could set up a CRM system. You know how much a CRM system costs? $50 a month.
right.
And it automates all of it, right? So there, and the people who are taking the load at $200 less, just look at it this way. They're gone. So they've taken the load. Okay. The next guy in the area who wants it, well, the $200. But the broker himself is living on borrowed time.
I hear you. And I guess my old school way of thinking, my lizard brain is kicking in, and it's like, um, I don't know. The thing about it is AI going to be that instrumental in replacing relationships?
Oh, it already has.
Rico, the relationship, big business has been working at taking that out of the equation for years. But when things go sideways, it's always the relationship still that saves it. Mike,
I,
say a valuable point. I think that the smaller brokers that don't invest in technology, the only chance they have is to stay in business. Really, is they continue to be transactional brokers. They look for the cheapest truck for the single loads, and they're kind of
well,
like
yeah, because they make money on the spread.
right. They're
Okay.
bottom feeders. Okay.
Right.
They
But
don't have enough money to invest in any type of technology. And they just don't have it. And everything, they can move a load for $50 profit because it's a husband and wife team sitting in the basement of a home, of a rental home, or they may own the home, and they're grinding out every cent. But even at 50 or $75 a load, they will never have the money to really invest in the technology to get
yeah.
larger.
But you
Um,
also have to remember that the next generation of brokers are coming in is Daniel.
yeah, well, they're tech. You know what? And I watched our business at Traffic's change from originally there was a lot of transactional, and then we changed more and more to being really contractual and a technology company because
Correct.
we had to our first investment in technology was $1 million back almost 40 years ago. It was probably 35 years ago when we got our first operating system. That was $1 million because we had to write it. There was nothing available at the time. There weren't that many brokers.
Now the AI writes itself. But
Yeah.
to answer your question about relationships, Rico, want to know how much AI generated OnlyFans models are making?
Yeah. Good
I'll be,
point.
I'll be your Huckleberry. Go ahead. Let's.
Does that answer your question?
So, Michael, let me ask you a question. What do you see if you had a crystal ball? What would your 3, 6, and 12 month horizon look like for carriers that are, your small, the listeners, most of the listeners of this podcast are carriers of 1 to, let's say, 10 or 20 trucks. What do you see?
Automate, automate. There is now, I tell you, I do a lot of marketing for my company, and marketing has never gotten more cheaper and faster. You know, it's amazing how cheap it's now gotten that Rico, I could spend a half an hour with you and I will show you. You go to any, I should tell you what, go to YouTube and say, how do I get all the steel manufacturers in Chicago? and it will tell you how to get that information off the internet and build a marketing list.
So is it that good as far as finding the B2B to get to the B2B business, the decision makers on a B2B end?
Yeah.
I understand how it can do business to consumer, but
Oh
B2B
no,
has always been a little bit of a tougher nut to crack.
no. I mean, if you want to do, as an example, steel manufacturers, you go to Google. You say, I want steel manufacturers in Illinois. It'll line them all up. Then it'll show you how to strip the data out of it and load it into an Excel spreadsheet. Then you can load the Excel spreadsheet and automate it. Just start collecting the emails and the phone numbers of the key people. Now, by the way, with regard to your brokers, I have something I wanted to tell you earlier. So everybody knows ChatGPT, right? Okay.
Right?
So for all the scuzzbag brokers who are really dirty, low bottom feeders who screwed a lot of people, hiding is done. On ChatGPT, everybody knows the main search, but if you click down, there's a plus button. There's a thing called deep search.
Right.
And if you enter the word deep, you enter the person's name in there, it's going to look throughout the entire internet for anything this person's ever done.
Whoa.
So it should help combat the fraud issue.
Well, if you go before AI, if one of these guys has done something bad, he'll be on the front page on the first one or two pages of Google, right? But over the next several months, he'll get pushed back to page 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Nobody will ever know it again.
Because there'll be new bad ones come up.
Right. There'll be other things to replace it, whatever. Deep search doesn't work that way. It goes through the whole internet and it'll find every source that name was mentioned.
Hmm.
There's no more hiding. It's done.
Right, right. It's just like brokers that don't pay their bills. You know who they are right now, pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying if you got a broker calling you, you know, Rico, just go into ChatGPT, go to the deep search, enter the guy's name, and see what comes up.
Right. Well, a lot of times too, you don't have, and I've said that for years too. The brokers are a lot more better organized than most of the carriers are per se. And the carriers don't necessarily have a very good centrally located place to kind of report issues or problems that they've had per se, other than you might get a Facebook blurb here or there, but if there's not a central located place where everyone is kind of connected at and sharing that information, it's still a little difficult to kind of weed out the bad
It,
players, so to speak.
Look, nothing's 100% foolproof, but if that broker's had a bankruptcy, if that broker's got bad reviews, if that broker's, if anybody's written anything or that guy's involved with anything, that that one line with their name has been entered into the internet, deep search will find it.
Interesting.
There's no
So
more
that's
hiding.
Interesting.
really going to help alleviate some of this fraud, and not all of it, because you're never going to alleviate all of it, but it will certainly alleviate some of the fraudulent activity that's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, as I said to you, I mean, remember the brokers were just relayers of information, but new marketplaces will come up,
Right.
right? New marketplaces, a more technology focused, sort of like traffic does, will come up because traffic, brokers are just aggregators of information.
Right. And the easiest way to aggregate it is through the investment in technology.
Yeah, but now it's going to go forward. Now you'll be able to, I preached to everybody. I said, you use it. Look, one of the biggest advantages of AI is it's a massive time condenser. I've done in 1 month what it would have taken me 9 months to do before.
Sure. Just a couple of times when I was just sending an email, something comes up and would you like this written by Chat GPT? And I go, sure. And, boom, it changes. It looks beautiful, flowery, and I have to adjust it a bit, but it writes a better email than I do.
So I'll give you an example, Rico. Let's say you're going to Tennessee, right? And you've done loads in Tennessee before, okay? Put the names of all those people into the system, and it will create for you an automated email that you could trigger to go to all of your contacts in Tennessee to tell them when you're there.
Mm.
See, what you haven't said was, why do you guys use brokers? Well, you use them because you're lazy.
No,
This
they
is true.
also have, the other thing, in all fairness, the the larger customers don't want to deal with small carriers under any, because they make whatever they make. They make widgets, they make soup, they make nuts.
Yeah, but
They just want to make their product, get it to market. They let it, because they don't want those calls Friday afternoon. Sorry, the truck's not going to show. They're
no,
just saying,
I understand. But 90% of the job, 90% of the economy is not the big companies. It's the smaller guys. And the only thing that's prevented the truck, and that's what I'm saying to you, if you think about this, right? And there's so many tools now available to be used for free, Rico, for free, right? Go to YouTube and just ask them what to do. That Rico could load in all of his clients and it will source out who's in Tennessee, who's in Georgia, who's in Texas, and it will automate the emails to go to them in advance. I'm going to be there at such and such a date. Please call me at the following number if you need something picked up to go to this location or whatever.
it's pretty cool. You know what? You're able to contact, whether it's customers or brokers, you're able to send an email to as many as 100 people. Uh, the only
Yeah.
the only problem you have is if all 100 say we want you and you got one truck, then they get pissed off and they don't call you again.
Well, no, I mean that you can handle it, but what I'm saying is what's prevented the look, the the drivers were at the mercy of brokers. The brokers were the ones who invested in technology.
Yes.
So AI is the great equalizer. It can do now for Rico for free virtually what the broker spent a ton of money before to do.
Yeah, and even before the broker, we have these dispatch services, okay? And what they do, it's probably going to take them out of the box first. So what a dispatch service does, let's just say I'm going to use Rico as an example. Instead of Rico hunting down loads, the dispatch service, they're looking, and Rico's heading to North Carolina. He's going to Charlotte. They're looking all over uh, the area around Charlotte for a load back to Atlanta for Rico. Now Rico wouldn't need that dispatch service to hunt for that load. He can do it himself through AI very easily.
Yeah, and by the way, that you could bet your sweet pippy that's going to happen very soon. The next set of brokers coming out will be AI powered. That means they're going to be, they'll like I've set up a platform for my company, and basically it's going to be virtually real time where Rico will have a PIN number for a board, and the board will follow him and the board will status message him, hey, we got something and such and da 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 da. So what I think is going to happen with the brokers, I'll tell you what I think is going to happen with the brokers. While the brokers are the ones, as you said, Rico, driving the cost down and making the money on the spread, the AI systems are going to go even faster, and that spread is going to get thinner because the AI you can't program AI to try and buy something for 400 and sell it for 5,000. It doesn't work that way. AI is rapid thinking, right? AI
Right.
status message, bing, 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 bing. Okay, do you want ding, ding, ding? Yeah, got good. Okay, here's a status message.
Quick
Go get it.
transaction. There's
Right.
no.
In fact, the best example is Uber, right? You got Uber X, you got Uber Share, you got surge pricing. That's a good analogy of what's going to happen. These brokerages are going to come out are going to be like an Uber system.
Right.
They're going to be dynamically pricing all the time. But I think that's a positive because it means for the truck drivers who are there. And by the way, here's also something you should know, Enrico. While you are trying to monitor which broker is the worst, these systems are going to monitor which drivers are the best.
Of course.
So they'll be
And
rating you. They'll be collecting data on your speeds, on your tickets, on your
you know what?
fines. They'll
Good
be collecting
brokers
all of it.
do that like before AI. The good brokers, they rated the carriers years ago. This has been going on, and that's why I've said 1,000 times on this show, the great loads never usually hit a load board because they know that Rico is the good brokers know and that Rico's in North Carolina usually on Friday, and that'll be their
Yep.
first call to Rico because they know he's in North Carolina every Friday.
Yep. That's exactly it, man. Rico's probably Rico right now his head is spinning.
Definitely gives you something to think about, something to contemplate, and start maybe looking for. course of action to kind of put in play.
Go to YouTube. I'm telling you, somebody made a YouTube about it.
Oh, for sure, for sure. The YouTube University, there's you can find just about anything on there. You can find just
And
about anything.
technology has never been cheaper.
No, you're
So
right.
with everything coming down the pike, Mike, I don't know if you got a chance to go over or look at or anything with this. Like I was saying at the top of the show, the big beautiful bill and everything that's coming out. What kind of effects do you think that this is going to have with some of the tariffs and all that stuff coming back into play?
Well, it's working, right? Companies are coming back. So I mean, look, it's not whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat, right? It's merely saying if you look at what's been going on for the past 30 years, the globalization of the economic sphere and the
Right.
subcontinent and all that stuff. Okay, there's a price to pay for it. Okay, now, but at the end of the day, you know what? It's amazing how the mainstream media has not talked about it. Do you know how much money that the government's already collected from tariffs?
Don't have a clue.
Over 125 billion.
That's a
They've
lot
already
of money.
collected over 125 billion dollars, and
Interesting.
that's only 3 months.
So
Wow.
my question would be, where does that money go?
General
Into
coffers,
the
I guess,
Well,
right?
I mean, it's not that whether the bill's going to work or not going to work. I think, look, the fact is, and I think, look, this is what I believe, and I'm a Canadian, and if you ask me, I can't disagree with the U.S. saying we're done. We're going bankrupt subsidizing the world.
You can't argue with that
We subsidized defense. We subsidized aid. We subsidized the whole damn thing.
for nothing. They don't get a
Well,
lot out of
no,
it.
well, it wasn't for nothing, but I mean, at the end of the
Well,
day,
they
now
don't.
it's
You
like,
know what? They don't get a lot out of it because a lot of these countries do not buy American products
oh
because they
no,
can't
they got
afford
a
to.
lot out of it. No, no, don't kid yourself. They got a lot out of it because what they got out of it was they got access to their markets, but it didn't help the American consumer and it didn't help the
Right.
American. It certainly, I don't know if a lot of listeners know this, but I mean, and it was actually Donald Trump who gave him the best gift in the world, ironically enough. Um, if you like you talking about Google and Apple, they kept all their profits overseas. They didn't bring it back.
Of course,
Right. Do you know why they didn't bring it back?
because of taxation.
Right. So what did Donald Trump do? Well, in his first term, he says, okay, I'm going to give you a holiday. You get, I can't remember how many days, you get a certain amount of time to bring back all your profits tax free. Now, it cost the government about $500 billion in lost taxes, but he says all the money came back.
So now they're going to make it.
Well, and now but the tariffs are designed to tell the company, we're not subsidizing your profits with cheap labor.
So
So
do you think
come
this is,
back,
let
eh?
me ask something, Mike. Do you think things like an Apple iPhone are going to shoot way up in price as a result of the tariffs?
Who cares? Is there a shortage of other phones?
Well, it seems to be the most popular.
Not if you look at their sales numbers. And by the way,
No,
they've already started moving their production to India.
and they can do it that quickly,
Well, there's not much left of the iPhone, right? It's just piecework,
right?
right? So I mean, and the irony is, guess which phone is making a bit of a comeback?
Flip,
BlackBerry.
BlackBerry, research in motion.
No, not, but do you know why BlackBerry?
because of confidentiality. Is that why?
No, because everybody texts and they like the keyboard.
Oh,
They're going back to pagers.
wow.
They don't answer phones. Didn't you ever realize that? Rico, you don't need to call your clients. You need to text them.
Hmm.
So on research and motion, is that all going to be built up in
They're
Canada?
doing great. No,
Or
they outsourced that, but
oh,
but but BlackBerry stock is doing not badly because just before they went kaput back then, they bought a software company called QNX who specializes cybersecurity, and they specialize in cybersecurity for cars.
interesting.
So their profits are doing well. Their stock is like a $5, but they're printing cash.
Sounds like it could be a good stock play for some of those.
Well, somebody will eventually take them out, but that QNX software was the underpinning of, when people remember all the infotainment started says, hey, people can crack into the info, so that software prevents people from cracking into cars. So I mean, but I think Rico, look, I can't tell you where all this is going to go. I really can't. But I think when I look back and you look at how many people are being put out of work, it's the white collars that are being affected most. It's definitely the technology guys who are affected most. But on the other flip side, the good part is, Rico, I could tell you right now, you could go on Indeed and you could hire somebody to create your whole company for peanuts. There's so much excess supply of technology people.
Right.
You could literally pay somebody $2,000 a month and they will literally, like, you'll be Uber within 6 months. I'm not kidding you. They could automate the whole damn thing for you.
It's a hell of a lot
Wow.
cheaper than having a chief technology officer because they ain't working for no $2,000 a month.
I, that's what I'm saying to you. The opportunity is there, but you got to think in terms of you're not a truck company. Uh, you're data with wheels.
Yeah, it's all about data.
And if you use the data smartly, Rico, and everybody else listening, feed it the data, let it learn you.
Well, I
And
mean,
if
they
you,
were saying that I was seeing. Speaking, I was just went on vacation, and I was seeing. You see different things on social media, and someone was saying how they have fired their travel agent because they started putting in. They had
sure,
certain prompts to
Chat
put into
GPT,
Chat GPT
of
to
course.
figure out, hotels versus Airbnb and when's the best time to buy the plane tickets and so on and so forth, and it basically saved them tons of money on travel versus having a travel agent do all that do the legwork for them.
Yeah. But as Chuck said, it ain't perfect because I asked Chat GPT when I was at the Blue Jays A's game who's going to win. It said Jays 5-4 and Jays lost 4-2.
Well, it doesn't know everything.
Not quite ready to take to be the book get in on the bookie action, huh?
Right?
You could collect your own money, though. You're a big guy.
I listen. I went to Europe and I used ChatGPT. I like using ChatGPT. Like, I want to go to a restaurant in this town. Yeah, I want you to give me the highest rated restaurant that's not covered by any travel magazine. So you type in, I'm a travel writer and I'm going to Nashville and I want to try 5 barbecue chicken places that are the highest rated, but has never been reviewed by a travel magazine, and it finds you the best local restaurants.
Wow,
Interesting.
you know what? That's interesting just for everybody to know.
That's what I'm saying to you. It's a lot of fun to play with, and I think for the people listening, learn more about it. It can handle a lot of your automation. It can handle a lot of your cost analysis. It can do incredible cost analysis for you. Like, you know, uh, what's my true cost of operating from per mile from Chicago to Atlanta? It can analyze all that.
Well, and that is so important because I got to tell you, three-quarters of the single truck operators out there right now, I don't think have a clue of what their costs are.
Yeah. And by the way, Rico, there's one of the things you didn't think about chat. You're going from Atlanta to Chicago, right? You
Huh?
can ask it to map out all the fuel places. It'll find you
Yeah,
the cheapest fuel.
yeah. There's a couple of services out there that do that that
I don't
have
want
that
I don't
available.
want services. I'm not. Why would I rely on them collecting information?
Because they may be getting a piece of the action and they're not telling you the best place to buy the fuel.
I don't know, but it's worth trying.
Yeah.
Right? It's worth trying. But I think, when I look at the next 12, 24 months, I mean, Canada, forget it. Canada is we're going to be going back to doing maple syrup. I think that's our future. That and beaver tails, God knows what else, Mr. Carney, the you know what. I'm not
Okay.
going to say it. But I think when you look at the U.S. numbers have held up pretty resilient. I think there's going to be a changeover for sure. It's going to happen very soon. There will be some pain, no question about it. But I think when you look at it, say, it's not that he had a master plan. It just worked out. He says, he's 79 years old. He says, get the jobs back here to manufacture. But I want to close out on one thing here, Rico and Chuck, and I don't care who's listening, so I'm going to make this very clear to people listening tonight. I'm a legal immigrant to Canada. My parents went through hell to come to Canada.
Right.
So if you ask me to have sympathies for illegal immigrants, the answer is no. But more importantly, when I hear the media and other people saying, who's going to do the jobs, the wages and da da da. So let me get this straight. You want to import slaves. I thought you were the left. So what you're telling me is import slaves. That's what you're telling me.
You want people to work for a wage that's not a living wage.
It's not even a question of living wage. It's a question of, I want somebody to come in here that I don't have to pay health care. I don't have to do this, and I don't have to do this, and I don't do this, and I can undercut that. So what you want is a slave. Yeah, I thought you were the liberal-minded guy. So
Yeah, to a degree.
You can tell me the Republicans are saying, no, we want fairness for our workers, but you, the left, want to bring in slaves.
Really? Yeah.
And you want them, and you like the slaves. Why? Well, because they can't complain.
They have no avenue to complain.
Yeah.
You don't like it, you have to go back to, South America.
Would you agree or disagree? You're the American on the show.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's definitely rings true on a lot of levels there.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't get it. You're the guys preaching to us about that. So you tell me bring the slaves in. Meanwhile, you're saying the Americans, no, we'll keep you on the dole and all that stuff. No, you don't need to go to work.
Right.
Really?
Right. Yeah, a lot of people are, unfortunately, they definitely have that mentality, that mindset of.
Listen, Chuck's grandfather was an immigrant. My parents came to Canada in 1969. Rico, you want to know how you want to know what my parents' jobs were?
What was that?
364 days a year, 9 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. 1 day off a year. For about 6 years.
And they were legal immigrants.
So I don't have any sympathy for illegal. In fact, I'm going to take my 3 minutes and say it here, which is, I'm sorry, the government, the Democratic government gave these people false hopes. They suckered them in by telling them, come on over. I blame the Democrats more than the illegal immigrants because they set the tone saying, sure, come on over. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And they came.
And then they said, what do you mean? We thought we were fine. Oh, no, well, things happen.
Yeah. So, with that being said, Michael, how do people get in contact with you to give you some thoughts on your commentary?
Right now, there's a lot of hate mail.
Not at all. You got a lot of fans out there, Mike.
Michael.Lampel, Michael period LAM like Michael P like Peter EL at gmail.com. My company name is Michael at insurancebrands.ca, which is my actual company that developed an online platform. Turns out ChatGPT said I'm the only guy who's done this in Canada. I'm like, wow. But listen, for everybody listening here tonight, be safe. Keep your eyes out. I think but start playing with it. Like I'm telling you, by the way, the paid subscription is only $20 a month. And one of the cool things about the paid subscription, Rico, you have a voice interface. So you can literally put the phone in the truck and talk to it, and it'll come through the sound system.
Wow.
I use it in the car. It's hysterical. I drive like, hey, what's this? What's that? And you could just keep talking. And the person starts to learn you. So for all the truckers who are out there and lonely, you have AI generated OnlyFans girls, and you got AI ChatGPT talking to you. And you're gonna get back to the home. The wife says, "How come you're so calm and happy?" I don't know.
It was a good trip.
But I got a 4,000 mile I got to go do right now. I'm going to spend time with my girlfriend in the car. I'm getting back out there.
Well, Chuck, how do people get a hold of you and we get ready to wrap this thing up
By
before
the
another
neck.
week?
They get a
Send me
hold
an
by the
email
neck.
with your phone number to chucksnow280@outlook.com. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back her in a hole for another week.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys for taking the time out to hang with us. We always are eternally grateful for you doing so. You could have spent some time doing anything else in the world, but you took a little time to hang out with us. So, with that being said, please remember, please, it doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us out tremendously. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you know anybody that can find any of this information that we talked about tonight useful or entertaining at all, please share the show with them as well. And with that being said, we want to tell you guys to stay safe out there, stay healthy, keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
God bless. Take care, guys.
Catch you on the flip
All the
flop.
best.
God
Be
bless.
safe. Be well. Take care, brother. Bye.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Good night.